I think we might be right to get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome and thanks for joining us. Today we're doing a presentation on ISO certification with the assistance from HRA or HR Assured. HR Assured is a company that MPAQ partnered with recently, when I say recently, in the last 12 months, for our safety system, which is managed and facilitated through HRA. If you're not signed up to the safety system, that's free to Master Plumbers members, and you can do that through our website. Today's session is going to be presented by Barry Fairman, who's going to be running you through the ins and outs of the ISO certification process and its uses. And we will also be taking questions at the end of the session, or if you want, you can enter those questions into the chat and I can ask them of Barry for you at the end. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Barry and we'll get started. Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Ernie. Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to let you know what we're going to be looking at today. I'm the certification manager for QMS Certification Services, so this is pretty much what I do every day. So what we're going to cover is JASAN's accredited certification, which is a very specific type of certification for ISO standards, the certification process and what it involves, what actually happens in the certification process, some tools your business can lean on to shield you from economic downturn, which will be probably helpful, I would think. And tips to enhancing your tenders and bids. And of course, any questions you might have about certification, the process, potentially the costs, things like that, I'll be able to answer those questions for you. Okay, so today we're going to plumb the depths of certification. That is a really bad pun, but I just thought that most plumbers would know about, plumbing members would know about Super Mario, and we think that it might be pretty super for you. We hope that it might be helpful in terms of getting tenders, bids for tenders successfully. So let's have a look at it. Let's go. Okay, so one of the things that we like to stress is that we're a JASAN's accredited certification body. So we're a CAB. They call us a CAB. We're accredited by JASAN's, which is a government-sponsored body, the Joint Accreditation System of Australia and New Zealand. JASAN's is a signatory to a globally accepted multilateral recognition document through the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum. And as JASAN says, accreditation is a symbol of assurance, and IAF affiliated accreditation is recognised worldwide. We've been involved in an international space for a long time with QMS, and those sorts of accredited certifications are really highly valued throughout the globe. Okay, so this JASAN's thing, what is it? It's we're accredited by JASAN. So a lot of people talk about accreditation instead of certification, but we're the ones that are accredited. We audit and certify organisations under certain schemes, these regulated schemes. Basically, they're heavily regulated. They're heavily surveilled by JASANs to make sure that the integrity remains in those schemes and the people that provide them. JASAN's is often mandated. JASAN's certification is often mandated in tenders at federal, state and local levels of government. And we work in all jurisdictions in Australia. And of course, we've seen quite a bit of this over the years. We've been in the game for about nearly 30 years. And a lot of our clients have come to us simply for the reasons there to get a tender, to be able to submit a tender at any of those government levels. So who audits the auditors? JASAN's audits us. JASAN's audits us quite regularly. We're on an 18-month schedule, which is pretty good because some cabs are on a 6-month schedule. We've been around a long time. We know what we're doing. We're quite expert in our field of providing certification. So, you know, we're surveilled at a lower frequency than some of the others. And it sort of speaks to our experience, the fact that we've been around so long and we deliver high value accredited certification under the regulated scheme. Okay, so the types of certifications that we deliver all the classics, the 9001, the 45,001 for safety, 14,001 for environmental. More recently, ISO 27001, the Information Security Management System certification. We also do food, and we do the NDIS as well. So we've got a broad range of certification products. And as I said, we've been in the game for about 30 years. So we're pretty clear on the requirements of those schemes, and also the way that certain industries need them delivered. And it's not one size fits all. We make sure that we understand the company that we're certifying, and not just to apply a standard approach that's rigid and inflexible. The industry sectors, we cover them all. We cover professional services, we cover manufacturing, we cover mining services, we cover government services, the NDIS, construction, civil, heavy civil, residential, commercial construction, architects, food, safety, food, health and human services. So we cover them all. So we're quite experienced across a broad range of industries and have been doing that for quite a long time. So this certification process, so anyone who's not been involved with this before, it's not that difficult to describe it. But of course, when you get down to the regulations and the standards, it can seem quite complex. But in terms of the process, most, if not all, cover a 3-year cycle. So there's one that we do that's a 1-year cycle, but most of them are 3-year cycles. Program of audits. Some people call them assessments or reviews. It doesn't matter what we call them; they're the same thing. To assess compliance to a standard. So it might be 9001, which is the quality standard. It might be 45,001, which is the safety standard, or it might be 14,001, which is the environmental standard. So they all consist of this process. So there's an initial audit, or 2 audits actually, and I'll get to that in a minute, to recommend certification. So you can hold it for the 3 years. And then every year in that cycle, in that 3-year cycle, there's a surveillance. So there's a surveillance 1 in the 2nd year and surveillance 2 in the 3rd. And then after that period, there's a recertification audit. So it all happens again. So just go to the next slide there. So a little bit more detail here. So as I said, 3-year cycles with mandatory audits. None of the audits are optional. They have to be under a regulated scheme. They must be conducted to a schedule. So in year 1, we have stage 1 and stage 2 audits. So those audits are to determine whether the client has the required management system to meet the requirements of the ISO standards or standard. In year 2, we have an annual review, and in year 3, we have an annual review. Now, those annual reviews are slightly shorter than a stage 1 and stage 2. And then once we get to the end of that 3-year cycle, we have a recertification, which is not a stage 1 and stage 2. It's a recertification audit. So it's a little bit shorter than stage 1 and stage 2. And then it just begins again. So it's very simple. The process as an overview is very simple. And it happens the same for every regulated scheme that has 3-year mandatory audits. So there's plenty of benefits. As you might expect, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about all the benefits, but I don't want to bore you with all of them in detail. But basically, when you certify a management system, so your management system gets certified, and that helps you with compliance and risk management. So if you've got risks that are apparent in your industry, safety risks, environmental risks, quality risks, it helps with that compliance. It can help with process improvement. So there is, within all the standards, there's a section, it's called section 10, and it's the last section of the standard is improvement. So improvement is actually mandated. Now, that can take many forms. It doesn't mean you're improving every single thing every single day. It can be periodic, it can be quarterly, it could be yearly. It really depends on the type of business. And as I said before, we structure our audits to understand the business. We also have to look at the business through the lens of the certification and the standard, but we don't treat every business the same because they're not the same. And I think if you're a business owner, you know that to be true. You might deliver the same same services, you might deliver the same products, but you will do it differently. So we consider that in the way we program our audits and the way we deliver them. You can have improved safety environmental outcomes. Certainly in today's world, we're sort of more interested in, certainly in safety for a long time, safety of our people, safety of employees, workers, contractors, the public, and of course the environmental outcomes. There's been a growth in that area in the last 20 years, and it just continues. And most of the authorities, most of the regulatory bodies in the jurisdictions are really very concerned about safety and quite concerned about environmental management as well. So customer satisfaction and business growth, that should go without saying. I mean, some of our clients really just have their certification to meet tender requirements, but many of them have found over the years that their processes have become more standard and more reliable and robust, and have seen customer satisfaction grow and business profitability grow because it's been applied quite diligently. Assurance of quality, assurance of the service or the product that you might deliver to make sure that it's the right first time every time, the old quality principles that have existed for a long time. Proof of regulatory compliance, the jurisdictions that require certification in certain tenders and contracts, it really is about ensuring that they know that the businesses that are certified are complying to regulations, not just to the standard, but legal regulations, legal compliance within those jurisdictions, which is very high on the agenda with procurement agencies in the regulated areas of tender and contract. It can mitigate fines and prosecution. This is where you don't really want to go, but if you are ever fined or prosecuted, having a certified management system is a mitigation. Certainly that has occurred in cases throughout the national areas, so across the states and territories. It certainly can have that effect. Sometimes when clients are prosecuted, they're forced to be certified after that. And then that's not somewhere you want to go, because they will just basically tell you exactly what you've got to have and what it's going to cost. We've seen that too. With certification audits, we always consider the size and context of the business when we do the audit. It is true, one size does not fit all. The standards themselves are written in that way. The standards that were in place a number of years ago, a couple of decades ago, were not like that at all. They were quite onerous, quite difficult. Small businesses found it almost impossible to implement a standard with a management system. But what we find is, in our experience, most of our clients are 1 to 5 people in construction services. So we really can't apply a standard in the same way we would apply with some of our other clients that have got over 1,000 workers, 1,000 employees, and contractors. We can't apply it the same way, and the standards actually allow us to apply it in a certain way for a certain context of a business. Next slide. Okay, so this is some interesting stats. Again, a lot of our clients are adopting management systems and certification to ensure that they can apply for a tender. It's mandated by the state government that they're working under, or the local or federal areas. But once they've done that, sometimes they find that just by having it, they've experienced improved customer service. Certainly in these statistics, these are broad statistics across a number of standards. 75% improved customer service, 77% boosted their own performance in terms of profitability, efficiencies. 74% acquired new customers and retained existing clients, and 44%, bottom line stuff, achieved cost savings. I often say to our clients, when there's always a cost to certification. It's not a cheap product. It's quite a highly valued product, so it comes at a cost. And if you're doing it right, you will achieve cost savings. That's certainly been our experience with a number of our clients over the many years that we've had them. Okay, so these are tools you can lean on. And again, a lot of this comes out of experience, our experience, what we see our clients doing. Good people. I mean, actually, the standards, all three standards, the common ones, talk about the people aspect. And of course, that's key in any business. They're not tools, even though I said tools your business can lean on, but people aren't tools. But they when they have good skills in things like admin, health, safety, environment, and tender specialists, they can really help you get those tenders. They can really help you win jobs out in the field. And I think having those good people in that sort of area within your business, and if you're 1 to 5, you might not have those specialists in there, but having people with those competencies can be really helpful. Having good consultants can help. If you've got to build a management system, a lot of our clients will engage a consultant to do that, as distinct from doing it themselves. You can do it yourself, but good consultants are out there. We have lists of consultants. We don't endorse any particular one. We would always provide options for clients if clients are asking us to consult. We can't consult, but we can provide options for consultants to help. Under accredited schemes, we're simply not allowed to consult with clients. We have to be objective and independent when we do our audits. And oftentimes we're asked if we can actually help with management systems, and we're not allowed to do that. We can talk about standards, and we can describe what a standard requires, but we can't build a management system for you. But consultants can do that if you need them. You can get people to build management systems. You can have recruitment specialists who can get the right people for you. There are consultants that help with tendering as well. So another thing that helps with certification and making sure that your business can continue through difficult times is having a good management system platform. And there's heaps of them. There's Mango, there's Procore, there's SkyTrust, there's a whole bunch of them. If you just have a look online, you'll find all sorts of options there. And obviously having good HR and IR systems. Now I know that HR Assured is very much part of that. So they can help there as well, our sister companies. And of course, accredited certification, like you'd expect that I would say that. I believe that based on our experience and what we've seen over the many years, that accredited certification has certainly helped businesses to maintain their profitability, stay in the game throughout difficult times, recessionary times. COVID was a good example. We were quite concerned that COVID would cause problems with our clients and obviously with business. But what we found was that good businesses turned to certification to ensure that there was a buffer in terms of being able to tender with government jobs, particularly with in times like that. Governments will often inject capital into the system, and of course that often comes in the shape of tenders and contracts. So accredited certification became a buffer to that, and it has been in the past. We've only seen growth through the GFC a long time ago, but we've seen in other recessionary periods we've only seen growth, and it's mainly because government procurement agencies require certification at certainly at the higher levels. Levels are 1 million and above, and sometimes up to 1 million. There are requirements to be certified or have good management systems in place. Okay, so just on the tips to enhancing your tenders and bids, and again, we've actually had to tender for certification to government agencies as well, and some of the schemes that we actually audit in have to be done through tender. So the tender authority will always provide templates and formats for the tenders that you're applying for. Bottom line is you've got to structure it clearly. You can't be half-baked in submitting tenders. You've got to make sure that everything's clear and concise. All the relevant details, don't leave anything out. Tender or contract groups within government are often quite mercenary. If you haven't filled in all the details, they'll just mount your tender or put it at the bottom of the pile. Obviously address the criteria. If you have to be certified, you need to address that, and you would provide that evidence of being certified by providing your certificates or leading them to the JASANS register. All accredited certification is on the register, the public register, and quite readily available by government authorities. And choose the right referees. Obviously, if you've got projects or referees that you need to apply there, if that's a requirement, choose the best ones, choose the right ones. Proofread it and proofread it again. Make sure that everything is in place that is required in that tender. Everything's been addressed. Don't leave anything out. Make sure it's accurate, because sometimes, many times, they will pore over them and they'll come back to you if there's any concerns. But you need to make sure that everything's in there. So if you are sort of asked about the submission, you can speak to it and make sure that you know that what you've got in there is accurate. Submit it in time. See a lot of tenders go in at 3 minutes to 5 on the Friday, if that's the close. But give yourself plenty of time to get it in. You can always put it in right at the end. That's no problem. But you've got to make sure that you've got everything done. As I said, you've got to proofread it again, and make sure that you've got everything addressed in that tender that's required. Certified clients can actually skip some of the management system parts. If you don't have a certified system, sometimes you've got to answer a whole bunch of questions that really identifies your management system and how it works. So if you're certified, there are cases where you would simply submit the fact that you are certified and your certificates. It's not always the case, but certainly in our experience, we've seen that. And I've had to submit tenders too for a certified business that I was involved in for about 15 years. And oftentimes it was quite easy, because we just simply were certified, and we would put our certificates in the submission, and they just go through. I was going to mention too that just with tenders, oftentimes if it's a low value tender or lower than $1 million, you might have to have a quality management plan, a safety management plan, an environmental management plan, and oftentimes a management system to support those plans. Doesn't mean it has to be certified, but once you move to about $1 million and above, it's often mandated that you must be certified, have a management system, and that management system must be certified by a JASANS accredited conformity assessment body like QMS. So it's that number, that $1 million number. Obviously, there's more risk at $1 million. There's often more people involved. So you can see that the procurement agencies really want to know that the risk has been mitigated based on a accredited certified management system. Okay, so one thing about Business Queensland's got some great info in there about tendering. You've got a whole bunch of information. In fact, I had a look at that and used some of their words, which was really helpful. I found that I contacted them directly, and I was given quite good access to people within the tendering agency. And so basically, if you go to that website at business.qld.gov.au, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, all about tendering and all about how to get those things delivered. Okay, just getting to the real deal here. The three certifications that we mostly deliver to clients are 9001, which is a quality system, 45001, which is a safety management system, and then 14001, which is the environmental management system. The majority of our construction clients across all the construction services hold those three standards. Some of them only hold one, but they are in the minority. And it's oftentimes either 9001 or 45001 if they hold one of them. But most of the clients move towards what we call triple certification, or the trifecta. So I would suggest that most clients would undertake this if if they were starting out, I think it would be a good idea to get all three. It keeps things in alignment and keeps things audits aligned, and the audits can be integrated. So that's probably the most common group there. Sometimes you get a double. You'll get a 9,001 and 45,001, or a 45,001 and 14,001. But mostly clients go for the triple, particularly in construction services. So just remember too, just to if you've got any questions, please ask them, put them in the chat, or ask them at the end, because I'm quite happy to answer your questions. Sounds like a lot of stuff that I've been going through, and it's a bit of a barrage. But yeah, if you've got any questions, please come through and ask them. So there's an offer on the table. This is quite a substantial offer, by the way, and in my experience, that our good marketing people have put together. So if you get one certification, you get 10% off, and that's pretty significant. 20% for two. So if you do a double, and for the trifecta, you get 40% off. It's an enormous discount on what we would normally do. So it's a pretty good deal. So I think Ernie could probably help you with understanding some of the value of that, given that it's a very expensive, can be a very expensive, seemingly expensive exercise to get certification, but it's significant, highly significant. So Ernie, did you want to add to that? Did you want to mention anything there?
No, it's as Barry mentioned, it's a case-by-case basis. So the costs, I don't think you can narrow down the actual cost without the assessment of the business, but the offer of the 10, 20 or 40% off is certainly generous. Absolutely.
Yeah, look, I mean, and I sort of haven't mentioned it in any detail yet, but the duration of audits and therefore cost is related to how many workers you have in the business and how many permanent sites. So not temporary sites, not work sites, but how many permanent sites you have. Now, most small businesses only have one site, one permanent site, like an office or a yard. So that provides a singular duration calculation. So it's one place, one number of workers, full-time equivalents, and then that produces the duration. The duration, the cost is then just based on the duration. So it's a rate for doing the duration of the audit. But as Ernie said, businesses are quite different. They have different risk profiles, different complexity, and then we can apply certain justifications for changing that duration, either up or down, but we try and make sure the durations are adequate to produce a good audit and adequately cover the requirements of accredited certification. So that's coming towards the end of my little webinar. How do you obtain it? You get on to us at QMS Certification Services. So there's an email there, info@qms.com.au. and one of our business development people will come back to you and provide a comprehensive proposal, fixed price over the 3 years, to make sure that you know what you're up for. And of course, there's a phone number there, and you can also visit our website, www.qms.com.au. So I hope you're all flushed with excitement. I mean, certification is they're the really bad puns. So it can be exciting if you do it well, and we certainly can help you to have that delivered properly. As I said, we can't build your management system, but we can certify it, and we are expert in that area. And we get pretty excited when people get certified. We see change, we see growth, we see improvement over the cycles. Most of our clients have been with us for more than 9 years, so that's 3 cycles. And we've got some clients that have been with us for 7 or 8 cycles. So it's certainly something that people hang on to, and right through all the ups and downs of economics and government tendering processes. And in many cases, you can't tender without it. So hopefully you can take advantage of that really good deal, because it's a beauty. It's really good. I haven't seen that before.
Thanks, Barry. That's thanks for the overview of the certification process and tendering and things like that as well. If I can kick off the questions, as I said at the start, I've been dealing with HRA for the last 12 months, and without, oh, and I forgot to introduce Annette in the background there, who's hidden her camera, and has
There
been
she is.
driving everything for us this morning. I can honestly say dealing with the HRA team over the last 12 months has been nothing but a pleasure. They've been probably the easiest company I've ever dealt with in all the years I've been working. So they're absolutely a pleasure. What are the QMS team like to deal with from the certification aspect?
Is that for Annette or me?
That's for you, Barry. Sorry.
Oh, look, the same. I mean, we've come into the HRA world through FCB, and our values are the same. I mean, we deal the same way with people. We like to provide good value. We like to be friendly. We like to be open, transparent about what we do and how we do it. So we fit in really well with that ethos and those values.
Great. And does the safety system have any bearing on the certification system?
Yeah, look, a management system of any type can be a great foundation for certification. Having a safety system is often the catalyst for people becoming certified. So they'll have a safety system that carries all the requirements, or generally all the requirements of the standard, and can be developed if need be. So it can help, absolutely, having something in place. It's certainly better than having nothing in place. And a lot of our clients come to us with very little. But those that have got an established safety system or established quality system or environmental system do pretty well in terms of meeting those standard requirements.
Great. And you mentioned during your presentation, you don't actually offer a consultative role.
Yeah.
But if I was setting this up in my business and I really didn't know what I was doing, or it's all a bit confusing, or I'm understaffed or something like that, who do I talk to about that sort of thing?
Yeah, look, I mean, in the first instance, you can obviously talk to us. We will simply tell you that we can't build anything for you, but you can talk to us about what's normally necessary. And then if you need additional help to get yourself ready for certification, we can provide you with a list of consultants in your area, in your jurisdiction, that can help out. And there's no obligation to use a particular consultant, and there's certainly a lot online as well. But the ones we provide have obviously worked with our clients before, and we've seen pretty good outcomes with the way they build management systems. Management systems are essentially a combination of documentation and records, so there's nothing real scary about them. They just have to meet the requirements of the particular standard or standards that you're applying for. So consultants are available if you need them.
Great. Do we have any questions from the floor?
Ernie, we have a couple of questions that I see in the Q&A feature.
Ah, okay.
Would you like me to help you?
We do have a Q&A feature. I wondered where that was. Sorry, is there any indication of cost and hours required to triple certify a company with 14 staff?
Yeah, look, a lot of our clients are in that sort of area with one site. Look, if it's a triple certify, it could be anywhere between $20,000 and $28,000 over 3 years. So it's significant cost. So when you talk about that 40% reduction, that is a significant reduction on those numbers. So I always, when people ask me straight off the board, straight off the bat, sorry, I'll say, look, it's tens of thousands, it's not thousands. It is quite an expensive exercise. We've got audits to do. We've got to register publicly, all that type of thing. We have to have competent staff. So there's a cost involved in this. So that's a number that you could sort of use to give an indication, that $20,000 to $28,000, depending on the number of staff, depending on the complexity of the business. There was a question up there. If you're a commercial trade and you have one office but multiple sites, if it's multiple sites that are temporary, we only look at the office and the worker numbers. We don't look at the other sites in terms of calculating a duration and sampling. So we have to look at your temporary sites, but we don't sample those in the same way as we would sample additional permanent sites. So that one there, we have an IMS. What was the question there? If you already have an IMS, the answer is that can be certified. If that's, and can you please explain a third-party audit versus certification with JASANS? Okay, so oftentimes, well, certainly a JASANS audit is third-party. There are third parties that certify, but they're not necessarily JASANS accredited, and that can be a problem. I have an experience where in a particular jurisdiction that's pretty close to us, where we are domiciled, which is not Queensland, a bunch of clients who were working with a regulatory body took on a cheaper option, having been certified with cabs like us, and then their third-party certification wasn't recognised because the company they used had actually been withdrawn and suspended in some international jurisdictions. So you've got to always be careful with that. Make sure that if it says JASANS, third-party JASANS or JASANS, it should be a JASANS accredited cab like us. So hopefully that answered some questions. Is there
Excellent.
anything else?
Any other questions, anybody? I think that was it, Barry. Now, we did have the more information link up on your screen. So if participants are looking for any more information, they can reach out and talk to Barry and his team, who will be able to assist further.
Yeah, look, if anyone wants to chat to me directly, certainly you can provide my my details directly too, only if you need to. I'm happy to talk through some of these things. I know it's a pretty short time to get this sort of stuff covered. It can be quite complex when you're first shown it, but I'm happy to demystify any of that stuff for any of your members.
Wonderful.
Barry, we do have a couple more questions that have come through.
Oh, what were they? Okay, number of internal hours required. I'm not quite sure. Does that internal audit
to run the system or to manage the system?
Oh, okay, yeah. Look. There's a couple of ways to do this. You can have a person, usually in a small business, usually one person who does it as a part-time type of thing, where they might do a couple of days a week or a day a fortnight, or some people do it a couple of days a month. It really depends on how complex your system is. But it's often a part-time role for people within a small business. Other people will contract a consultant to do just that. So they come in once a month or every fortnight to help do internal audits and things like that, because you have to do internal audits on your system as well as ours. So it's as I say, small businesses often one or two people might share the load, and it might be a HSE, a person who does the health and safety environment part of the business. So yeah, it varies. It honestly varies between businesses. Some businesses are quite adept at it and have sort of made it very effective, very efficient over time. Others, they struggle a bit at the start, but they certainly start to manage those hours. But it's not a full-time job for a very small business, certainly in our experience. Will this assist with contracts under 100K and panels, or mostly for larger works? Look, I can say that certification of a management system would assist in any contract, but whether or not the body, the procurement agency needs you to have it, that's another story. But I know that certified clients, again, in our experience over decades, 3 decades, certified clients do much better in terms of getting those smaller contracts as well, simply because they're efficient and effective based on the fact that they've worked with their management system, and certification drives improvement. So it can help. If the procurement agency doesn't need it, well, you don't need certification, but it certainly can help. Is this a task that you could contract offshore? And when you mean a task that you contract offshore, you mean building the management system or running the management system? I guess, yeah, haven't seen too much of that, but we've worked internationally and we've seen businesses run in different jurisdictions internationally. So potentially, yep, you could offshore it. One thing though, we need to know in a certification body, we need to know that the business itself understands certification and understands its management system. So it's pretty important to, if you're going to do anything offshore, you would have to know what's going on there as well. I use the preparation part-time. It also depends on how much your process and policies workflows are already defined or not. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a statement there that if you use a particular management system platform, I think if you've got, it says it depends how your policies are already defined or not. Some businesses already got policies and processes and procedures and instructions and safe work method statements. So that can help having that stuff developed before you embark on certification. Just confirming we have an IMS and it is third-party audited each year due to our turnover. Should we move towards an audit and certification with a JASAN's accredited body? Look, I would always say yes, but it really depends on your requirements. I mean, no one is forced to have certification. Sometimes it's a real grudge purchase because you can't tender without it. But if you're having a third-party audit and that can be really helpful. I mean, if it's not a JASAN's accredited body, it still can be helpful if they're doing a good job. But I would suggest that if you want to move into, the higher levels, higher tiers of contracting and tendering, I mean, you're probably it's most necessary to have accredited certification. Certainly, the majority of our clients that they have come to us initially because they want to tender at higher values, and we've got hundreds and hundreds of them in the particular cohort that I spoke about today: construction services, plumbing, civil, and all those the construction-related industries.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no further questions, the email to reach out and catch Barry or request additional information's there. If not, you can freely email or call myself, and I'm happy to put people in contact or ask questions on your behalf. That's no problem at all. If we've got no further questions, Barry, thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, yep. Thank you, Annie. Thanks to all the members that attended, and also thanks Annette too for doing such a great job on the presentation.
Thank you to Annette also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
All right,
Hope to see you again.
Thanks for attending.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.